For the start of this year, it has been quite tricky to choose shows to review. I know, when am I going to get some of that sweet comic relief money I so obviously deserve? My selection process is either, I've heard people mention that, or that looks like the worst thing ever invented by a human, obviously including nuclear weapons, mushy peas, and the harpsichord. Seriously, it sounds like a psychopath chucking spoons at a wok in a cave. But surprisingly, my first exposure to the Amazon original Sneaky Pete was on a bus stop in my hometown. Partly surprising because bus stops are usually full of old people, the homeless, or drunken fingering. It was also a surprise because I live in a small northern town filled with the kind of people who regularly bring up immigration, despite not having the self-awareness to realise that even orphaned children in bombed-out houses don't lie awake dreaming of coming to this smegmal flake. And quite frankly, stealing your job will be an offensive demotion. Said with love, of course, but because of all this, not only was I surprised to see an ad for a show made this century, but also the very sight of colour printing was making some of the locals fear there may be some kind of witch nearby, ready to curse them with empathy or sobriety. Anyway, Sneaky Pete is a drama about a recently paroled conman trying to repay a debt and rescue his family. That's right, conman, like from Off of the Hustle. I'm sure to people who have watched my Hustle review, it will come as no surprise that I was already half-mast at this point. Sure, tonally they're not really the same, but they both feature a shitload of people bumping into each other, like they're two abstinent 20-somethings trying to find alternative ways to come, so they're basically the same. The titular Pete, who does the sneaking, is a role assumed by the conman played by Giovanni Ribisi. Initially this was a concern, because my previous opinion of him was that he had the acting range of a bowling ball blown through a drinking straw. Clearly he was on some mission to thrust that idea back in my face, because I was completely convinced. Giovanni Nanu Ribley Bibblesea wasn't the only big name stamped over the show. Every poster I saw proudly proclaimed Bryan Cranston to be the executive producer. At first I didn't care. I always thought that creatively executive producers were at the same level as the script font or the writer's tooth decay. In the end, however, I got a lovely surprise of actually seeing his chiselled meth face playing the role of charismatic villain, who has to be written to be the biggest piece of shit on the planet in order to help the audience empathise with a criminal. Okay, no, I didn't like this as much as Hustle. It didn't have the levity it needed in places, but it was still great. Amazon has a pretty good batting average, especially compared to Netflix, which is a shame because one is a company that wants to bring a huge variety of TV and film to people on demand for a reasonable price, the other is a vampire that abuses employees and dodges taxes. Mind you, I am typing this very script on an Apple product, so we have all the proof we need to say that modern quality is rarely achieved without fucking people over and refusing to pay taxes. Sorry, Asian children who are killing themselves, but how else am I supposed to write my inconsequential comedy scripts? With pen and paper? Sneaky Pete was great, and in my opinion well worth underfunding the NHS due to lack of money. At this point I'd usually garnish the review with big reviewery words, to create the illusion that your time hasn't been wasted. But right at the very end of the series, spoiler alert I suppose, it did a modern shitty thing that seems to be happening more and more. It didn't fucking end. Shows in the last few years aren't content with just telling a story, no, why would they be? We need a thing right at the end to comfort us that there'll be more. It's okay, son, nothing ever dies anymore. You were on a streaming service, all the episodes were released in one day. Bit presumptuous to assume people will actually want a second series. I enjoyed this. I'd like to see another one. I have questions left unanswered. A lot of people do. But in a year's time, if you ask a fan to describe the story, they'll look at you like you've just asked them to say one positive thing about Michael Gove. So obviously watch Sneaky Pete. It's great even in spite of the ending where a man in a suit dangles a shiny object and says, "You'll be back next year, won't you? That's right. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to sodomise an underpaid worker, then go laugh at those poor people as they're told by doctors that life-saving medicine is only for cunts with loads of coins." Hey, what's that there? Is that show's called Taboo.